Thumbnail? Ah. Oops. Oops. That's crazy. I feel like I'm missing the one. No, that's all. Dang. SMBAU Sims. Uh, no idea what that could possibly mean. I'll be honest, YouTube emotes are so much better than the default Twitch emotes. They're so good. Alright. For the time being, I put aside whether a 19th person exists and announced the theory that the goal of the culprit might have been to make us solve the riddle of the epitaph. Uncle Hideyoshi looked like he was really interested, but Aunt Natsui thought it was ridiculous.
Of course. If you think about it that way, even the letter from yesterday makes sense. That motive seems to fit pretty well with the facts. Setting aside whoever it was that gave Maria-chan the letter.
Beatrix exists! Even though she was puffing her cheeks in the cute way she had been doing since yesterday, I couldn't think of it as cute. If I took it lightly, it might suddenly transform into a creepy laugh. Do you know what SYBAU means? Saibao? No, I do not. Brain rot lessons with stems. The hidden gold doesn't exist. However, the idea that we have a culprit who foolishly believes otherwise, wants father's gold, and whose motives is to make us solve the riddle and then steal the gold from us, does indeed make some sense. However, in that case, why did they kill those most highly ranked of the Ushinomiya family first?
A good point. If they wanted to make us solve the riddle, killing those closest to Kinso-san doesn't sound like a good plan to me.
I agree. Besides, if we follow that argument, wouldn't it have been quicker if they had threatened father in the first place? You think it would be faster to just ask the person who wrote it rather than try to force us to solve it?
That's also a good point. Of course, I don't think that father would let it slip from any ordinary threats. Anyone who knows Kinzo-san well would surely be well aware that he won't bow to ordinary threats.
He's a man who bears the burden of the Ushinomiya family and all its wealth. He has been exposed to many threats and attacks in the past. It is because he was able to overcome them that the family prospers today. Totally agreed on that. I can imagine our grandfather letting himself get pushed around just because some asshole threatened him. Jessica, that is not how we thought. Uh, uh. In that case, what about this one? Saibao, shut yo ass up, which means Simbao. Ah, I see. Thank you for the lesson. I have become 10 times smarter. I have seen it around before. I just never questioned what it meant. No, wait. Is this out there as well? Scar in the score. I couldn't hesitate. A crazy idea is like a bow and arrow. It may be hard to hit with, but it's a great weapon that can strike enemies from afar. Research shows that most people who have died in battles were killed by wounds from arrows. In a battle, you don't shoot off just one arrow. You shoot off a whole bunch of arrows at once and assault the enemy soldiers with a wall of them. So shoot them over and over. Assault the truth with a wall. If the culprit is after the hidden gold, it would be very inefficient for them to force us to solve the riddle. Asking the person who made it in the first place would be much quicker and easier. In that case, the question is this all a message directed at grandfather? In other words, these murders were a threat directed at grandfather. If he didn't tell the culprit what the gold was, his family members would be killed off one by one. What if we weren't the only ones being forced to solve this riddle? What if grandfather was too? If you think about it that way, it explains grandfather's mysterious disappearance. If the culprit had attacked grandfather, then judging by the state of the 6 bodies were left in, he would definitely have been displayed somewhere with that horrible makeup added. But despite that, we still hadn't found him. Did that mean that grandfather had been kidnapped and was being held somewhere? I'm here to tell you that I've changed my mind again. I ship Crystal again, but solely in weird route. Cinema. Good, good. It is indeed the Crystal route. It is. Don't get me started. This is not the time. Don't get me started. But just, I'm glad to hear it. How could you insane? How could? That sounds interesting. So father is being confined somewhere, and being threatened that if he doesn't tell them the location of the gold, we will be killed off one by one. I struggle to understand what you find interesting about that. Aunt Natsui threatened her, but Auntie Eva just smiled calmly. Since we still haven't seen him after all this time, I think that it's almost certain that grandfather has gotten caught up in the crime. When you think about that, you can't just ignore about your theory, right? Stay quiet, George. In the first place, when exactly was it that father went missing?
Who was the last one to see father?
It was probably me. This morning, when we were worried that we didn't know where my husband and the rest were, we were talking about how they might be in father's study, and I went to check his room and greeted him. Come to think of it, I've been holding the key to his study this whole time, haven't I? Genji, let me return this to you. Aunt Natsui pulled out the gold key and handed it to Genji-san. Looking at the key, Auntie Eva giggled. Hey, Genji-san. I'm sure the police will inspect father's room thoroughly anyway. It doesn't matter what you hide, it will probably be just exposed anyway. So, you might as well just tell us about it right here, right now, don't you think?
What are you talking about?
It's simple. Don't forget, father's study is a locked room with no way in or out except for that key. I want to double check how that's being defined. There is one entrance to father's study, and also the windows. Any other entrances or exits?
There are not. There's no way to get in except for the entrance.
You're sure about that? There isn't some secret hidden door or anything? Since father isn't here, I am the highest ranked member of the Ushiromiya family. I am asking you as a representative of the Ushiromiya family head. Understand that and answer me. Are there any ways in or out of that room other than the main entrance? As father's closest aide, I'm sure you know. Aunt Natsui looked a little offended at the part about being the highest ranked family member, but she kept her mouth closed for the time being and waited for Genji's answer. I couldn't help but feel a little uncomfortable. Why was she going on and on about hidden doors? Maybe thanks to Umineko episode 1 Legend of the Golden Witch right now. You too, Kanun-kun and Kuwasawa-san. If you know, won't you tell me? If there is one, it would be better if you said it. If there isn't, then someone is going to be very much driven into a corner in a second. Oh my gosh. I need Eva dead. I need Eva dead. I hate her. I hate her. Reading her dialogue is fun though. If I'm given that there is a hidden door, then my argument comes to nothing. Auntie Eva didn't specify which person was about to be driven into a corner, but following the flow of the conversation, I had to feel that she was referring to Aunt Natsui. Mother, what are you talking about? George, stay quiet for a while. What do you say, Genji-san? Kanan-kun? And Kuwasawa-san? Is there a hidden door? Or not. Genji-san, when you remodeled Father's study, you must have overseen the construction. I won't let you say that you don't know.
There is nothing of that nature in the master study.
You're sure? What about Kanun-kun, entrusted with the one-winged eagle? Yes, I'm sure. There is nothing like a hidden door in the master study. Kurosawa-san? No, I haven't heard of such a thing. What about Dr. Nanjo? Who had a close relationship with father?
I have never heard of anything like that.
Great! Then, are you ready? Let me begin. It's really simple. Everyone tilted their head doubtfully, wondering what Auntie Eva was so proudly starting to talk about. Auntie Eva laughed triumphantly as though she were about to reveal a secret that only she knew. Natsui-Nissan was the last person to spot father, right? I forget the exact time, but I think it was a little before 9 in the morning. Nissan, do you remember? I ran into you just as you were coming out of father's study, right? Yes, I remember. What does that have to do with anything? And the next time you went to visit father's study, that was after we had found the bodies of Nissan and the rest, right? Together with me, you went up to the study to report that, and we discovered that he wasn't there. By the way, Nissan, at that time when you went to enter father's study, did you notice anything? Notice anything? What are you talking about? Come on. You picked up some trash, right? A folded receipt. I do seem to remember picking up some trash. What does that have to do with... I got the receipt when I brought some candy at the store at the airport. Auntie Eva pulled a small bag of candy out of her handbag. Ah, the receipt from when you brought the candy. But, Mother, what does that receipt have to do with anything? I'm trying to remember anything here. Who had the receipt last? I don't remember.
George, stay quiet and listen for just a little longer.
Uncle Hideyoshi's expression was a little strict. Somehow it seemed that he understood what Auntie Eva was getting at. It was really just a whim, you see. I wasn't out for any foresight. And I certainly wasn't planning on setting a trap for you or anything. Actually, this receipt... You remember, Nissan, that just after you met father and left, you met me, right? At that time, I stuck this into the door to the study. So what does that mean? Does it mean that until Aunt Natsu picked up the receipt, no one had opened the door? Wait a second. Auntie Eva, sticking a receipt in would be obvious. It's possible that when grandfather opened the door, he noticed it, found it interesting, and stuck it back on the door. Jessica heartily argued back. She still didn't really know what it meant, but she realized that whatever it was placing some kind of suspicion on her own mother. Of course, I pulled the receipt up very small so that no one would notice it. But even if you assumed that he saw it fall, he would have no way of knowing how high up the door it had been stuck, right? I checked it while Natsui-Nissan was taking the key out. The receipt was still stuck not 1 millimeter away from where I had put it. I can't understand why you would pull such a childish prank. I'll bet you were the one who did the prank on that door to my room too.
The door to your room?
It was unpleasant to talk about, so I didn't. But this morning when I woke up, there were the signs of some prank on the outside of my room, with what was possibly the same red paint that had scribbled across the shutter. There were some unpleasant marks as though someone had tried tearing at the door.
Wait, what is this? Why have you been silent about this until now?
My apologies. Since so many horrid things have happened since then, I had completely forgotten about it until just now. know or care about that. I'm not talking about your door, but the door to Father's room, okay? After you checked that he was in his room, and until we made sure that he wasn't, that door wasn't open even once. How did Father get out if he didn't use the door? I, I don't know that. That's what I want to know.
Natsuini-san, other than you, who else checked to see whether father was in this room? Last time I met Kinzo-san was when we were playing chess last night. I believe I was with him until just before dinner. Did anyone see him after that? I didn't. I gave him his dinner last night.
Yes, Shannon and I were with him.
So up until then, father was still definitely in his room. But Natsuini-san, it sounds like when you found out that he wasn't there, all ways in or out of the study were closed, right? But even so, you said that you met and talked with him this morning. I don't understand why everyone has become so gloomy. Could someone explain it to me?
They're saying that Natsuhi didn't see Father? That she just made it up? It's not out of the question. But I don't like it. Like, Natsuhi is definitely the most unstable right now with her headaches and her outbursts. But I think it's a red herring. I really super duper do not believe Natsuhi lied about seeing Father, nor that she's responsible for anything. Mother and Father, are you saying that what Aunt Natsuhi says about meeting grandfather this morning is a lie? And I guess Natsuhi would have a reason to lie because she didn't want to admit that. No, it doesn't make sense. Like, the thought process was that she lied about seeing Father so that to like stick it into Eva's face, right? Because Eva didn't believe that she would be able to meet with Father. But that is, but no, because that would mean that she would hide that he was missing, and the only reason she would hide that he was missing is if she was responsible for his disappearance. But obviously, I don't think so. So I think this is all just a red herring, giga red herring. I don't believe it for a second. Why the hell would she lie? Mom's innocent. Why the hell would she lie? Jessica, I keep telling you to watch your language. All at once, everything became confused. From across the parlor table, Auntie Eva and Aunt Natsui confronted each other. We are we gonna get some water and think about this? I have returned. So, I think like the entirety of episode 1 has just been a collection of red herring. Like every humongous essay that they talk about is just a red herring because they don't know that magic is real. So I don't believe anything that they say at all. I will not be tricked. From across the parlor, Auntie Eva and Aunt Natsuhi confronted each other, while George and Aki confronted Jessica. What the hell is going on? Remember, it's only up until last night that we have multiple people saying they saw him, but the only one who claims they saw Father since this morning is Natsuhi Nisan. And then there's the strange fact that we learned from the receipt. So how can we connect these points together? Auntie Eva urged everyone to work with their imaginations. Sure, the receipt could become an important point, but I didn't know what other point I could draw a line towards. The answer Auntie Eva was hoping for was that Aunt Natsuhi had lied to make it seem as if grandfather had been in that room this morning. And Auntie Eva's mere whim had exposed it. That makes no freaking sense. Why the hell would Mom lie? She has no freaking reason to. That's what I want to know. But Jessica-chan, you can't say that there's no possible reason for her to lie about Father being in the room, right? You see it every once in a while in detective novels, don't you? The trick of confusing the time of death to create an alibi. What were you talking about? I've even heard of that. We still haven't found Father yet, but if you think about it normally, it would be natural to assume that he has already been killed. In that case, we should expect to find his corpse soon. If, at that point, the time of death could be faked and Natsui Nisan would be able to create an alibi. Do you understand, everyone? This morning, when Aunt Natsuhi went to check that grandfather was there, she lied, and he was already dead at that time. And she moved the body to some location and disguised it to make it seem like he had just been killed there. And then she could stay with everyone else to prepare an alibi. And then she could say I heard someone screaming or something and dash over there and become the first to find the body along with everyone else. Is that what Auntie Eva's saying? How preposterous! Detective novels are nothing more than indulgent entertainment. You can only think of such an indiscreet idea because you read them all the time. Yeah, even if she tried to fake the time of death a little, all of that would be blown away in an instant once the police did their autopsy. It might have fooled the people in old books, but do you seriously think that kind of trick would fly in modern Japan? Are you insane? You think so? This morning when Dr. Nanjo looked at the corpses, he was only able to give a vague estimate of the time of death, right? Autopsy results are affected greatly by the corpse's surroundings and individual peculiarities. It's a very rough estimate with an uncertainty of several hours. And unfortunately, the police scientific investigation will have to wait until tomorrow. Measuring the exact time of death after that, even in modern Japan, like you said, wouldn't be that easy, you know? Right, Dr. Nanjo?
Examining a corpse is an extremely difficult task that requires both experience and instinct. I have heard that there is a very high rate of mistaken diagnosis. I imagine it is very possible for a misreading of just a few hours to occur. However, for an alibi, there's more than enough. It's not just a trick of the classics, it's a trick that actually works. Natsui-san, it is not like we want to suspect you, alright? We don't, and that's why we just want you to prove you're innocent.
Is this innocence you want me to prove? This morning I definitely met with Father. He told me to keep the one-winged eagle engraved in my heart. Are you denying that he said that too? I would definitely not admit that. I won't permit you to deny that Father said those words. Maybe Father's body won't appear at all. Normally, a person has to be missing for 7 years before they're officially declared dead. Wouldn't that be a clever way to extend Father's nearly finished life another 7 years and keep all of this wealth for yourself? Whoa! No way. No, 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 not to me. Please, please, please. Don't. Don't be rash. Don't be rash. Don't be rash. Don't, dude. I mean, as much as I want it, right? I need Eva dead. But no, no, not like this. Oh, this song. I cannot abide this. I cannot abide any more from you. I am Ushinomiya Natsui. Though I do not have the right to wear the one-winged eagle on my body, it is certainly engraved in my heart. Speaking that way to the wife of Kraus, successor to the head, to the person who will act as such in his place, absolutely disgusting. Oh. What's this? Are you going to shoot me with that gun? Go ahead. Why don't you just shoot? You're just desperate because you can't think of a way out, aren't you? Do it. Just try to obscure the truth with violence. You... It wasn't like Aunt Natsu had been actually holding that gun at ready and threatening anyone. But after she was told to by Aunt Tieva, she did hold it at the ready. And surprisingly, once things got to the stage, Jessica and Genji-san tried to stop her.
Madame, please, calm yourself.
Mom, you aren't lying, so there's no reason for you to listen to this.
Calm down, Natsuini-san. Don't you just have to swear that father was definitely in that room? Why are you getting so worked up over that? That's right. Natsui-san isn't lying. Isn't that the end of it?
But then I want you to explain. Father managed to disappear from the room. The windows were closed tight from the inside. And the door too, remember? If you really met with Father this morning, then you must explain how he disappeared from the unopened door, locked room scenario. If you don't, that would mean that you are a liar after all, right? Oh, do you plan to mock me? You want to argue back? Go ahead. That's right. Try explaining it right here, right now. After that, I can apologize to you for doubting you. How did Father manage to get out from that locked room? I can't explain that, and I don't need to. Let me explain it. We'll take the best parts from my perspective and yours and come up with a more friendly explanation. I'll believe that, like you said, Father was still in this room this morning. But the next time the door was open, Father wasn't there. You don't have any objections so far, right? I have no desire to listen to anything more you have to say. Shut your frivolous mouth. My reasoning goes like this, alright? I verified on both occasions that you were the only one to go in through that door. And the receipt is proof that. So what is the answer to the puzzle of how Father was sent to the room regardless? The window. He was sent out the window. Natsuini-san, you pushed Father out the third-story window of the study into the courtyard. You... you vicious malcontent! Madame, please endure it. Eva-sama, please stop this. Father died from the fall into the courtyard, and when you left saying you were going to check the doors and windows, you went and hit the corpse somewhere. That was probably when you took some measures to fake the time of death, right?
This all ties in with the case regarding Kraus-Nissan and the rest, and also the case regarding Beatrice last night. There's an extremely good chance that Natsui-san is suspicious in those cases. Normally I wouldn't want to say this. But now it's out in the open, there's nothing else I can do. Please, Natsuini-san, please explain how you can be innocent, or else I can't help but suspect you.
Why me? Why must I, Ushinomiya Natsui, be insulted like this? Looks like everyone else has said their piece. Yes, oh my gosh, Butler. Butler, please, 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 you put an end to this farce. What is this song? This is like a Mortal Kombat theme. No good. No goddamn good at all. Auntie Eva. What do you mean, no good, Butler? Jessica looked up at me, hanging up to my every word. Auntie Eva's expression was composed as always. good at all, you say? What is? Butler-kun? Tell me. You can only see from this... You can only see this from one angle. That's why you're convinced that it has to be Aunt Natsui. It's not like I'm defending her, but bluffing a checkmate like that isn't gonna work. I think the theory you based around that receipt is possible. It's not a bad thread of logic. But I only give it a grade of 65 at best. He's right. Because there's no one else that can confirm the receipt was at the door. Eva could have just dropped the receipt on the ground so that Natsui would pick it up, and yeah, you get it. So that's how you flip over the chessboard here, by playing the same trick on Eva, saying that, well, there was no one else to prove that the receipt was at that door except you. You didn't tell anyone else you did it. You just did it. If this were an exam, that'd be bad enough to get you extra lessons in detention, you know? Oh my, well, how would you break through a door sealed by a receipt and make father disappear other than my theory? Your theory is interesting, I admit. And if we could state definitely that there were no way to make father disappear other than yours, then we could say for certain that the last person to seek him, Aunt Natsui, has to be responsible. However, since there still is a possibility that she is innocent and that these accusations are false, you can make that claim. Then, Butler-kun, who are you saying could have made grandfather disappear other than Natsui-san? It would be impossible for anyone else to do it. Mercy proved that, right? And from the first time she visited the study, and until the second time when we visited together, the study was a perfect locked room, and when the seal was broken on the locked room, he was already missing. If this doesn't prove that she was the culprit, what kind of trick could they have used? Like I said, Auntie Eva, only 65 points. So, let's try flipping over the chessboard, shall we? It's not about how they managed to make grandfather disappear from the outside. Think about how grandfather disappeared from the inside. The door had the receipt stuck to it, so it couldn't have been used. He also couldn't have gone through a window because they can't be locked from the outside, and when you visited the study, you checked to make sure they were locked. So the windows also weren't used. At that point, the study really was a locked room. We have to accept this. However, the study didn't remain a locked room forever. Once the seal created by the receipt was removed, it became impossible to use the door and possible to escape through the door. In other words, it's not about how Aunt Natsui made grandfather disappear. We need to think about how he was able to escape. Grandfather's study isn't any ordinary study, right? According to Genji-san, there's a toilet in the kitchen and even a bedroom almost like a little house. If he hid under the bed, for example, he could trick the two of you into thinking he disappeared, right? Auntie Eva, even you didn't check carefully, did you? And then the two of you went back down the stairs thinking that he wasn't there. At that time, the receipt was already gone. In other words, if grandfather was hiding in this room the whole time when it was a locked room, and escaped after letting the two of you go past him, we can crack this locked room right open. What is this? What if father wanted to do something that weird and then escape the room? It's so absurd. Yeah, it might be absurd. However, it still shows that there is a possibility that Aunt Natsui is being accused falsely. You received this imperfect. In chess, we might call that check, but it isn't checkmate. And the thing that I like least is how you pressure Aunt Natsui to explain it and then argue that if she didn't, she might be guilty. If that passes as logic, then why don't you let me? No, that's wrong! Flip over the chessboard one more time. Objection! Auntie Eva, according to your argument, you must explain to us here and now why you and Uncle Hideyoshi couldn't have killed those 6 last night and then casually returned to the guest house. You've been trying to force Aunt Natsui to explain. I'm sure you can prove your own innocence, right? Auntie Eva, who had all of grandfather's wealth, suddenly dropped right into her hands. That's right. You're pretty damn suspicious yourself, aren't you? If you say Mom's suspicious because she was the last person to see him, then what about you, Auntie Eva, who was the last person to see Dad and the rest? Just like how Butler said, prove that you two aren't the ones that killed them. Mother, I also think that your reasoning was a little overeager. I'm sure the receipt was an important hint. But like Butler-kun said, there's not enough to prove that Aunt Natsuhi is guilty to any degree. We're all equally suspicious. It's not right for only Aunt Natsuhi to be persecuted. Our, our noble father crawling on the floor under his bed? You call nonsense like that an explanation? Then why don't you explain first? Who killed those six and how? And then try showing us proof that you weren't involved. Oh no, her asthma attacks. Oh no. Milady, Milady. Jessica suddenly started coughing. At first I thought she was choking after yelling too loud, but it seemed to be lasting too long for that, and she really looked like she was suffering. Jessica kept coughing and choking down on her hands and knees. Jessica, hang in there! Dr. Nanja!
Jessica-san, your inhaler, quickly. Wait, I have one with me.
Oh gosh, there's gonna be a plot point where the inhaler's gonna run out. Oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no. Dr. Nanja pulled a bronchodilator inhaler from his own bag, which was lying on the sofa, and handed it to Kanun-kun. Come to think of it, 6 years ago, did Jessica sometimes break into violent coughing and had to use that? But 6 years ago, I never saw Jessica look like she was in this much pain. Aniki, was Jessica asthma always this bad? It's gotten a lot worse in these last few years. It's no problem when she's normal, but when an attack comes suddenly, she can't stop coughing. She has a fang! Just like Maria. Interesting. Oh gosh. Milady, your medicine. Here. Taking the inhaler from Kanun-kun, Jessica used it with a practiced hand. For a while, it looked like her throat was still feeling itchy, but it gradually settled down. Are you alright, Jessica? You scared me. It's no big deal. Don't worry about it. Beads of sweat covered Jessica's whole body, and she couldn't hide her rough breathing, but it looked like her sudden attack had calmed down for now. The servants had left the room hostile atmosphere in an awkward, unsettled state, but that was fine. There was absolutely no need to be driving up everyone's suspicions of each other. When you think about it, even probing at each other's alibis and searching for the killer is probably completely unnecessary. After all, we're just powerless, ordinary people. And when the police come tomorrow, they'll definitely employ cutting-edge techniques and investigate the case thoroughly. Oop. Did my mouse run out of battery? Oh, no, we're good. I wonder if Butler-kun is right after all. Just like Natsui-san is suspicious, I can't ignore the fact that we are suspicious too. Arguing about that now is certainly unproductive. Everything will be fine if we just leave it to the police tomorrow. But don't you want to know too, Butler-kun, who the killer is? Don't you want to let them know right now, this very second, the pain you feel from losing someone precious to you? I won't deny that. Even one day would be too long to let the bastard who pulled this detestable bullshit go. But that doesn't mean that I want to doubt one of the 18. Even though I said what I said earlier, I don't even want to doubt you, Auntie Eva. To me, you're an awesome aunt who's always mischievous and entertaining. I don't want to trade insults with an aunt like that. Not a single person here wants to do that. Right? Everyone? I feel the same as Badminton. It's pointless to trade insults. It's probably just the stress built up because so many people have been crammed in one place this morning.
Probably. It is only natural. It may be easier said than done, but I think we should all relax as much as possible. Eva, Don't you think we should cool our heads? I do think the receipt is going to be an important clue in searching for father's whereabouts. We should tell the police about it when they come.
Yes, you're right. Yes. I just felt a little triumphant when I figured out that part with the receipts. Of course, it isn't fair to only doubt Natsuine-san. We're just as suspicious. But still, but Lurkun, at least the part about the receipt is real, right? Don't forget this. And try thinking deeply about what this means, okay? Auntie Eva and Uncle Hideyoshi stood up. It looked like they planned on leaving the parlor. In the end, it's pointless for us to continue playing detectives. After all, the police will reveal everything in the end anyway. That's right. Even if we don't play this detective game when the typhoon passes, and those lively seagulls return to their harbor, everything will settle itself. Yes. When you think about it, this kind of crime is completely trivial. It will definitely be resolved, even if we do nothing. When the seagulls cry. Title drop! Oh! Natsuini-san, I'll take it that you don't want to see my face anymore. I feel the same. If I remember correctly, yesterday you had some room prepared for us in the mansion so that we wouldn't need to go to the guest house, right? There should be a bath and a toilet there as well, and a lock and a chain to secure the door. There's even a bed to lie on, and my husband will be able to watch TV without having to fight with Maria-chan over which channel to watch, okay? You may do as you please, but only make sure to be cautious. Thank you, Nissan. And mind your own business. I'll be counting on you to keep an eye on everyone, alright? Because the killer is definitely among us. And Nissan, make sure you don't forget that you're being watched too. Haven't you made enough party remarks? Yes, that's enough. See you, Natsuini-san. Bye-bye. Genji-san, please call for us when it's dinner time. Until then, we'll keep ourselves locked in with the chain. Genji, Kanon, escort them to the guest house. Guest room. We'll be fine. I don't want to end up being escorted by the killer. In fact, I will be more comfortable if nobody left this room until we reached ours. Let's go, George. I'll stay here with everyone else. George, the killer is in this room. Do you plan on staying in a place like this? Leaving this room will be the same as suspecting one of my relatives. I refuse to believe that anyone in our family is capable of something so horrifying. George! Honey, say something to him.
George is already an adult. If this code tells him not to leave this room, then it's up to him. Let him do what he wants.
Father. Auntie Eva and Uncle Hideyoshi left. The only voice that called after them was the sound of the rain. Sorry, popping in again. Also want to say that I've been reminded why I never completed chapter 2 Weird Run in the past, because this Spamton fight fills me with rage. It's so good, oh my gosh. The normal route Spamton is one of my least favorite super bosses, because it has the least anything. Like, Jevil has the whole gimmick of needing to use pacify on him, and only Chris being able to act. So it's a very good puzzle of having to keep Chris and Rousey both alive the whole time. You can only progress the fight if Chris is alive and they can act, and you can only finish the fight if Rousey's alive and you have enough TP for pacify. That's a very fun puzzle. Then you have the knight in chapter 3, where obviously it's a great puzzle of trying to do your best not to get hit so that you don't waste turns healing or reviving because you need that TP and every turn so that Susie just spams Root Buster over and over and over. It's just such a great puzzle to have Susie constantly be using Root Buster, right? It's super good. And then Garrison obviously is just like a giga unique fight in every way. No need to talk about that. But you have Spamton, which is just
It's just like any other normal boss in the game. It's just okay, keep everyone alive so that everyone can snap. That's it. There's no unique gimmicks of having to use Root Buster or having to use Pacify or only Chris being able to act. It's just keep everyone alive. It's it's a great fight. I love Spamton and I love the song, but it's just a bit boring. So then you have Snowgrave Spamton, and it's so good. And being a one-on-one with Chris, 4 hits being all it takes to kill you, needing to juggle your TP when to use X slash, or if you would rather use it on the fried pipis, or if it's so good. Like it's just so punishing because like the strategy is just defend until you have enough TP to use X slash, then X slash. But if you get hit and you waste a turn healing, that's a turn you're not using to get more TP or a turn you're not using to use X slash, so you're not progressing the fight. And it's just it's so good. I love Weird Rat Sampton. Uh, Defend only Garrison and Weird Route Smampton are my two favorite super bosses. Absolutely. They're fantastic. Number two, oh no, I gotta be the number one top fan or else I'm destroying this. I am the GOAT. Solved my disappearance. Yellow Soul, bro. Well, no, obviously they're all unique, like in the actual battle screen. I just mean like they're not Senten isn't unique in your thought process of how you handle your actions between each turn. Like with Java, you need to juggle. Okay, do I defense so I can get enough for hypnosis? Do I just pirouette because that also gets him tired? Oh, I need to heal, but if I heal and don't act at all, then I'm not progressing the fight at all. Oh man, I need to keep Chris alive because without Chris, we can't progress the fight. Oh, it's the final attack coming. Oh, everyone's low on health. I gotta heal Rousey because Rousey's the only one that matters to be alive at the end. That's interesting. With the knight is okay. I need to defend so I can use Root Buster. Oh man, but I need to revive Chris or Rousey because they're good meat shields for for Susie. I need to keep Susie alive, and it's so good. With Spamton, it's just okay. Everyone's alive. I can snap. Okay, someone died, revive them, and the other person can snap. Okay, snap, and that's it. It's just snap. Because since everyone can act in Swampton, if someone dies, you can still progress the fight by having someone snap while someone else revives, right? It's just less interesting in your thought process. That's what I mean. The first time I got to like under 30% health, and ever since I haven't gotten that close. It's so punishing, isn't it? I love it. I love Weird Rat Swampton so much. I can't wait for the final boss of Weird Rat. It's gonna be so exciting. It's gonna be so exciting if it's this hard. I'm so excited, dude. I'm so excited. Gosh. But yeah, Weird Rat Spamden is the only super boss I cannot beat like within 5 tries, no matter how many replays I do. Weird Rat Spamden gets me every time. It's so punishing for like it is a statistical fact that Weird Route Spamton does more damage than the Knight, and that's hilarious. That's just is like you look at the numbers, it's just a fact. Obviously, it's for balance reasons because it's a one-on-one, and with the Knight, it's multiple, and they want to make it more fair. Uh, and obviously, the fact that the Knight is clearly holding back is just hilarious to think about how Weird Route Spamton does more damage than the Knight. They weren't kidding with that Neo body. Is the best in the business. Weird Rock Final Boss Chris. I don't think I'm not getting into this right now. But I'm not getting into this. I'm not getting into this. But I would love for Chris to be the final boss. But I have my own theory. Burley was getting my axe earlier with Bert. I can understand. Birdly, for me, it's the essay attack where all the papers fly at you. Cannot dodge that for the life of me. That thing is impossible. There's too many papers. The party was being buried beneath the savage atmosphere. When I looked at the clock, I was surprised to find that it was already evening. How do we really spend that much time worrying, talking, fighting about such needless things? It's almost evening. Oh my gosh, the twilight is coming. We will separate those who are close. Maybe it is Hideyoshi and Eva, because they are literally close right now in the same room. Feeling bored, I started clawing at my head when the like snake attack thing that he does was mine. Did it like 5 times in a row. Was struggling to just keep Chris and Noel anywhere near alive, let alone gain TP. It is. I really like that fight because he just spams that attack, right? And it's just very clever because it is not only a hard attack to dodge, it's very fast, but also the fact that it's there so that you can farm TP, right? If you want to be bold about it. Obviously, you don't need to use it, you can just defend to get the TP, but it's just very fun how Toby made him spam that attack so that if you're bold enough, you can use it to grace and get hella TP. And also the fact that Noel's health keeps constantly going down because of the Thorn Ring. It's it's just a very good punishment to not make it extremely easy. It's not supposed to be easy. Just like how Undyne and Sans and Genocide, you're supposed to suffer for your consequences. Rowan and Chris dead, but I'm glad Chris died at least once because I get to see interaction Burley calling up for yes, yes, it's so good. It's so good. Every I could talk for hours about Weird Route. Don't get me started. It's just once you get to chapter 4, that's all I say. Maria and I made eye contact. Since I had thought she was completely immersed in the TV, I was a little surprised. I don't believe it now. Mm. The letter, the murders, everything. It was all Beatrice. No, actually, I wish she would just come out and say that it was true. I want it to be the work of a 19th person. Otherwise, the 18 of us will have to keep on doubting each other. I think believing in a 19th person is better than that. Bringing grandfather outside without opening the doors or windows must be a piece of cake for Beatriz, right? Maria, after taking a single short breath, hung her head and then raised her face again. That's right! Looking at door is useless against a witch! Beatriz is familiar with all 72 demons. The 33 ranked gap makes the power to instantly carry the desired person to any dimension. To her, taking a person out of any locked room isn't hard at all, you see. Witches sure are incredible. Tell her if she plans on committing another crime, to do it in a way that no human could. To make me believe that a 19th person, no, a witch exists. I sure do. Oh gosh. Damn it. I don't even understand my own thoughts anymore. When I'm led to believe that in a 19th person, I deny it. And when I'm led to believe that there are only 18 people, I deny that too. Even though I wish that there were more than just the 18 people here, I can accept the existence of that 19th person. In short, even though there are more than 18 people, there are less than 19. The number of people in this mansion is 19 x 18. So the number of people can be represented by an integer. However, it's possible for there to be anything after the decimal point. You shouldn't be able to represent the number of people with anything but an integer. And yet, 19x18. Why does a fraction less than 1 play into this? It's no wonder that 19th person is an invisible being that can't be seen. That's why, in the integer representation that must be used to describe numbers of people, she can't be seen. That which cannot be seen. Because Beatriz has no body. Therefore, she is invisible. Is there a 19th person or not? Does the witch exist or not? 19 X 18. The witch exists somewhere in that X. Very interesting. The second Twilight, no, yes, the second Twilight draws near. The two who are close. Oh gosh. Oh my goodness. Oh goodness gracious. It is time for the second Twilight. I'm betting it on Hideyoshi and Eva. I could be wrong. It's the only married couple left. It has to be. There's no way. It's either Jessica or Natsuki, Eva and Hideyoshi. And that's really it. It can only be those two. I just want to say that I always found a story where the killer's some unseeable person that you know is out there but you can't find or see at all is to be insanely cool and also terrifying. Extremely terrifying, I agree with you. The uncomfortable atmosphere continued even after those two left. It was thick with the idea that thinking about who the killer was would be the same as deciding who to doubt. It had begun to feel like discussion of the incidents was itself taboo, so no one was mentioning it, at least out loud. However, those thoughts were what filled our minds. All that we couldn't say out loud made our heads feel like they were going to explode. So at least on the outside, the parlor had once again regained its calm mood. Though everything was left unsettled, it feels like the rain's gotten a little lighter. Hmm, still pouring down. Hmm. Even if it did stop, there's no boat on this island. But it'd be nice if the boat came quickly tomorrow. I've had enough of this Western mansion vacation. Mom, when will the boat come tomorrow? Originally, the boat to take them back would have arrived at 3 o'clock today. They probably would have telephoned to say that they would come after the typhoon passed, but unfortunately, the telephones aren't working. But they aren't children over there. They were told this was for the purpose of dropping off and collecting our guests, so they will most likely arrive first thing tomorrow morning, probably around 9 o'clock, I believe. It was completely black outside. When I looked at the clock, I realized that it was just past 11. 7. I was starting to get hungry. In the kitchen, Kumasawa was cooking enthusiastically. She had laid out a variety of dishes, and while they didn't match the level of Goda's art for cooking, they are still quite gorgeous. It was an act of kindness from Kumasawa, trying to use food to enliven everyone's low spirits. Kumasawa wasn't Kumasawa wasn't nearly as talented as a professional cook like Goda, but she was far from unskilled. On the contrary, since she had been brought up in a fishing village, the simple food she created was something sometimes very highly valued. Kanon arranged the food Ku, Kumasawa had finished creating on the plates under her direction. Kanon also helped in the kitchen sometimes, but since he was rarely placed in that role, he was slightly awkward even though he tried his best. Self-conscious about the fact that he couldn't skillfully arrange the food, Kanon's expression darkened slightly. But Kurosawa smiled to say everything was fine. Oh, it's arranged beautifully. Kanon-kun, aren't you skilled? If it had been Shanon's Nissan, it would have been even more beautiful. Kanon stopped arranging the food for a bit and hung his head. Shannon was the one who always assisted Kurosawa in her cooking, though Kanon was doing it instead. As though he remembered Shannon's face and her brutal end, he grimaced. Forget it for now. Genji spoke kindly to Kanon as he advanced upon. Nanjo had escaped from the parlor once the mood had become sour, and Genji had become his opponent in a game of chess upon Nanjo's request. Yes, I will forget it for now.
Good. That is probably for the best.
Genji purposely faced away from Kanon as he spoke. He did so because he understood that it might make things tougher on Kanon if he noticed that someone was looking at his eye. Nanjo also understood that and held back any thoughtless words.
I wonder where Kinzo-san has gone. I hope that he is safe, but I do not know. Only I think everything is as the Master's hope, as he arranged. To distrust that would exceed my role as furniture working for the Master. Are you scared, Genji-san? I am frightened something bad will occur again tonight. I have nothing to be afraid of. I am simply work for the Ushinoya family.
Nanjo sighed through his nose and made a carefully considered move. Nanjo was very slightly dubious. Could Genji possibly think that he would be left out of this? He couldn't begin to imagine what was happening inside this mansion, but he definitely couldn't deny the possibility that it was something of Kinzo's design. If you liken this island to chess, Kinzo had opened the game and as a result 6 pieces has fallen. Could it be that Genji was calm because he believed that he alone was outside the chessboard and safe? Nanjo thought about it. Wasn't everyone just a piece on this chessboard lined up equally without any exceptions? Wasn't even Genji who had gained more of Kinzo's trust than anyone? No, wasn't Nanjo himself, although proud of his position as Kinzo's only close friend, just another one of the pieces laid out on the chessboard?
Genji-san, I am really frightened about tonight. I'm hoping that with all my heart that we will still be safe when tomorrow morning comes.
There's a small chance that it could be Nanjo, because Nanjo and Kinzo are close friends. And Kinzo isn't exactly dead. So maybe by tearing them apart, it would mean that Nanjo dies, and thus has been teared apart from his close friend. Let me drink water. Hmm. Back. The guest room that Eva and Hideyoshi had moved into was used to house guests before the guest house had been constructed. So until a few years ago, they had stayed in this room every family conference, so they were very familiar with it. This room, just like a room at a hotel, had a bedroom and a bathroom. So even though they were still shut in, it was far more comfortable than the parlor.
Guess it's true you can relax more when you're alone with your immediate family. They should all just do this, shut themselves in their guest rooms and lock the doors.
But Natsuine-san's throwing her weight around, saying no one can leave the parlor. How can any of them talk back? She always felt she was being left out in the cold, so now that Nissan's dead, she's in high spirits thinking her time has finally come. Seriously, how shameless can she be?
Come now, don't say that. Natsui-san's working pretty hard. No need to jump on her like that. And about the receipt earlier, you went too far there.
Oh, come on. If I hadn't said it there wouldn't be another good time to say it.
Eva, sulking, cutely sat down beside Hideyoshi, who was lying on the bed watching TV. Hope.
Still, it's been a very long time since we've been alone like this.
Sure has. When I think about it, both you and I have gotten older. Since George was born, everything's gone by in the blink of an eye.
Everything has gone by in the blink of an eye. I wonder if we were too hasty in having a child. Eva's eyes looked like they were staring off into the distance. Yeah, she had thought about it once in a lifetime chance. Her older brother Kraus had been unable to have a child for quite some time. 6 years passed after his marriage to Natsui without any signs of pregnancy, which didn't please Kinzo at all. As for Eva herself, she would be removed from the Ushiromiya register anyway once she got married, so whether a successor to the head was born or not, it was all the same to her. So she had thought. But then, one day, she got a heavenly revelation. Or maybe it was the whisperings of the devil that she had heard in her greed. Perhaps she could remain in the Ushinomiya register if she gave birth to a successor first. If things went well, perhaps she could even inherit the Ushinomiya family herself. When she proposed this to Hideyoshi, he approved of it instantly. This had not been because Hideyoshi had also had greedy thoughts. For Hideyoshi, who had no close relatives, it was a chance for him to feel once more that long-forgotten thing called family. So he agreed, without hesitation, not to fuss over which family name they were to keep upon getting married, and assented to having his name entered into the Ushinomiya family register. It wasn't easy to persuade Kinzo, but as his daughter, Eva knew Kinzo's personality well, so she chose the time when Kinzo was most dissatisfied with Natsui, and expertly managed to make him accept Hideyoshi as his son-in-law. Looking at Hideyoshi, who had achieved success after starting from nothing, Kinzo might have seen a little bit of himself. That's what I'm saying, man. That's what I'm saying. That's what I said last time. That's why Kinzo didn't choose Hideyoshi as a sacrifice. He does really see him as a hard worker that didn't just leech off Kinzo's money. He quickly grew to like Hideyoshi and permitted him to transfer into the Ushinomiya register. George would eventually become the successor to the Ushinomiya family. They had raised him strictly with that purpose in mind. George, who had been worth their while and had grown into a fabulous young man who wouldn't disappoint no matter where he went. That's why she couldn't stand that he was in love with a servant like Shannon. So when she had learned that Shannon had died and the engagement had been invalidated, well, part of her had been shocked at the gruesome crime. Another part of her had been relieved that her precious George wouldn't be stolen by some servant girl. I always did hate Kraus-Nissan. He was so full of himself, always swaggering around, so proud that he would one day become the head. So I wanted to get back at him. Those were just my emotions as a child, of course. But in the end, those emotions took over my whole life. And if only that had been all. Because of those emotions, I got you and George involved and I used you.
Eva, don't blame yourself too much.
Hideyoshi sat up and put his arm around Eva. She could feel warm understanding from him.
Well, I reached a halfway point in my life long ago. But you know, I have never once regretted how I lived my life. Not once. I think that since I've been with you, Eva, I've been able to relish an enjoyable life that other men never will. After I lost my relatives in the war, you taught me once more the warmth of family. So I'm grateful for the Ushinomiya family, and think of it as my only family. In this life I've led with you, not a single thing has been wasted. It's really been fun. It's really been a fun life up until today.
Thank you, honey. Eva hung her head, burying her face in Hideyoshi's chest. Probably no one in the parlor could even imagine that this side of Eva existed.
I'm the one who should be thanking you. To this day, there hasn't been a single day that I regretted being with you.
Me too. I'm so glad to have you by my side. As if this game's so unsubtle. I'm just they're just waving their death flags, like the biggest flags they can find.
George is already a fine adult. He's a man who can do his job well on his own, even if it's not there looking out for him. How about it? Another New Year's, do you want to go spend some time in the Maldives? Just us two, no one else.
No way! Aren't you always saying that you're so busy responding to New Year's cards that you don't even sleep?
None of that this New Year's. I won't read New Year's cards. I'll just stay quiet and check to see if I won the New Year's lottery. It'd sure be nice if we won a color TV this year.
No way. I'm gonna check the lottery in the Maldives.
None of that either. Just the two of us, taking our time, carrying on from when we were newlyweds, just before George was born.
Yeah, that does sound nice.
I hear the Maldives are wonderful. An island with nothing on it, surrounded by beautiful, colorful reefs, and cottages lined up over the water.
Carrying on from when we were newlyweds. When will that be?
Soon as I finish some business. I won't know until I ask the travel agency, but probably before New Year's Eve.
No way. Right now? I want to start right now. Peevishly, or maybe coquettishly, Eva pled for his lips. The only sounds that filled the room were the distant voice of the announcer on the news, which Hideyoshi had left on, and the obnoxious pounding on the rain against the window. They're so dead. 1 second. There was a knock at the door, and Genji-san answered.
Madame, dinner has been prepared. Will you eat in here again?
Yes. Bring it here. Is Dr. Nanjo still in the kitchen?
Yes. He has said that he wishes to carefully deliberate over his next move. Do not worry, he is with the other servants.
Genji-san's good enough to get chess to be grandfather's opponent. I hear he's even better than Dr. Nanjo, you know.
Is that right?
I played against him long ago, but he must have let me win. Maria, sounds like it'll be time to eat soon. But look at you, you've been watching TV all day long and you still haven't gotten bored. Always watching TV, so I'm fine. Hey, Maria-chan sure is a TV kid. Food's coming, so we have to clean up the table. It was still cluttered with the aftermath of the drawing contests we had all been having, using several pages torn out of Maria's notebook. Jessica began cleaning that up quickly. Still, everyone here sure can draw. Really shocking.
Genji, ask Eva-san, Hideyoshi-san whether they would at least like to have dinner with us. Although they will probably turn us down.
Certainly.
First, father. Now, Eva-san. We seem incapable of managing a full showing at the Ushiramiya diner table.
Natsui felt her headache start throbbing again and lightly held her temples. They're dead. They're dead, dude. They're dead. GG's. They're dead. They're dead. They're dead. GG's. GG's. The distance from the kitchen to the parlor wasn't that large, so Genji had gone there and back by himself, but the guest room was a little further away. Natsui had warned him not to be alone without good reason. And just now, Nanjo had also admonished him, saying that it would be better if he held a little more concern for his safety. Genji took Kanon with him, and the two of them went to visit Eva and Hideyoshi in their guest rooms. Genji knocked on the door.
Eva-san, Hideyoshi-sama. Dinner has been prepared.
He waited a short while for them to come out, but there was no response. Genji-sama, look at this. Kanon pointed under the door. GG. A Western-style envelope had been inserted under it. Normally, when something inserted itself this way, it would be interpreted as a message from someone outside to someone in the room. So since this might be a private note meant for Eva and Hideyoshi, it was not something that Kanon and Genji were supposed to take interest in. But this Western-style envelope was Kinsel's envelope, the same as the one Maria had taken out last night and surprised everyone with.
Namaste. It is the master's envelope.
Or, although it had been Kinsel's envelope, the author of the letter Maria had read out loud last night had not been Kinsel. Genji continued knocking a little harder and called out in a loud voice.
Eva-sama. Eva-sama. It is Genji. Are you there? Please answer, Eva-sama.
There was no response from the inside. Sometimes when the servants went to call from guests for a meal, the guests would be sleeping so deeply that they wouldn't wake up. In times like that, the servants would stick a letter in the door to show that they had called it by and leave the guests be. However, despite that, Genji beat even harder on the door and called out Eva's name. But there was no answer. Kanon stuck his ear up to the door and, holding his breath, listened for any sounds coming from the inside. I hear something that sounds like a television, but I don't sense anyone. The room might be empty. Genji took out a handkerchief and, careful not to touch it with his bare hands, gently pulled out the envelope which had been stuck under the door. It had been sealed with deep red sealing wax. Without a doubt, the mark of the sealing wax had come from the Ushinomiya family head's ring.
Eva-sama. Eva-sama. Please answer. Are you still in your room?
Even so, there was no answer. There was a chance that the two were aimlessly walking around the mansion. This was the home Eva had grown up in. There was plenty of reasons to think that she had gone out for a casual stroll. Genji groped around in his pocket and pulled out a bundle of keys, including the one that would open the guest room. Genji-sama. Kanon also understood what this meant. They would sometimes unlock a guest's door so they could go in and do things like make the beds, but only after they made sure the guest was out. To unlock the door for a separate reason, and especially to do so when there was a chance the guests were still in there, and without their permission, was an action unbecoming of a servant. However, Genji had decided. If the only problem had been that this knock hadn't received a reply, he wouldn't have gone this far. But the envelope under the door was undoubtedly Kinso. Doubtlessly, jeez. Or rather, one of the Western-style envelopes that the Ushinomiya family had. And after last night, the sender of this envelope could be someone other than Kinso. This letter had been sent by someone other than Kinso.
Eva-sama. My apologies. Allow me to enter your room.
After giving that final notice, Genji stuck one of the keys from the bundle into the keyhole. There was a sound of the doors closing, unlocking, and then he slowly turned the knob and slowly started opening the door. Light seeped through the crack of the door. Were they in the room? Or had they forgotten to turn out the lights? There was a sound of the door chain being pulled tight. The chain had been secured. The chain couldn't be secured from the outside. That meant that they were in the room now. The sound of voices on the TV seeped out of the room. The lights, the chain, and the TV. All of these things made it clear that they were in the room. But there was no sign of them. Genji called out to Eva once again through the crack of the door. But there was no answer. Genji-sama, what should we do? As part of their job, the servants were able to unlock almost any lock in the mansion, but they had no way to open the door with a chain. The only way to get by the chain was to cut it. It was certainly not permitted as part of the servants' usual work. A creepy chill was already rushing up their backs. Kanon held his breath again and tried to sense someone through the door, but even so, he was not able to sense anyone.
I'll go call Madame. Kanon, cut the chain.
Yes. As Kanon rushed away hurriedly to get the cutting tool, he was called back by Genji.
Wait, Kanon. Go back to the kitchen and take Kumasawa with you. Whatever you do not act alone.
Yes, certainly. It looked like Kanon was wondering why he had to do something so troublesome in the middle of this urgent situation, but Genji had said it out of wariness. He didn't care what happened to himself, but in the worst case scenario, he didn't want anything to happen to Kanon. In the kitchen was Kumasawa's son, who was piling food on the serving cart. And Nanjo, who seemed to have thought of a move that would turn the tables on Genji and had been awaiting his return, wanted to show him. But he immediately realized that something was wrong with Genji's demeanor.
What has happened, Genji-san? Dr. Nanjo, my apologies, but please allow me to suspend this match for a time. Kanon, take care of the chain. Kumasawa, stop setting up dinner for now and accompany Kanon. I will go over to Madame. If you would come with me, Dr. Nanjo. Oh, has something happened?
Genji took Nanjo, who still didn't know what was going on, and quickly left the kitchen. Kumasawa-san, my apologies, but please come with me.
What has happened, Kanon-kun?
Unable to take in the situation, Kumasawa said almost exactly the same thing as Nanjo and chased after Kanon, who had flown out into the hallway. Accompanied by Kumasawa, Kanon went into the storehouse, and from amongst the tools packed in toolboxes and hanging on the walls, he looked for a tool that could be used to cut the chain.
What are you looking for? I will help.
We're cutting a door chain. Where was the large bolt cutter?
A door chain? Why would you do something like that?
The chain is locked to Eva-sama and Hideyoshi-sama's room. Even though they should be inside, when we called to them, they didn't answer. It took Kumasawa some time to figure out how cutting the chain and Eva and Hideyoshi not answering were connected, but she did realize that this was an urgent situation. This would probably... Kanon took a very large bolt cutter that had been hanging on the wall. It was called a cutter, but maybe it would be easier to understand if described as having the shape of a large pair of pliers. He recalled being warned that it was a dangerous tool that could easily cut through one of your fingers. Kanon took that and rushed up the stairs. He knew it instinctively. He should fight for every minute, every second to open it quickly. Or maybe, already.
Please wait, Kanon-san.
Hurry! Kumasawa eventually caught up with him, grasping for breath and both hands on her knees. When Kanon changed his grip on the bolt cutter and looked up at the door, he let out an ah, struck, speechless. Oh, brother! Hell's all.
What's this?
Kumasawa screamed weakly, her face paled. There was no surprise, because right there, on the door, just like the magic circle that had been drawn to the shutter of the Rose Garden storehouse, there was another eerie shape drawn with paint that looked like blood. However, it was dubious whether this one could be called a magic circle, because unlike what most people would think of as a magic circle, it wasn't a circle with shapes drawn inside it, but a slightly more geometrical shape. However, the strange non-alphabetical characters written in the gaps of the figure were without doubt the same as the magic circle on the shutter. He had returned to the kitchen for a short while. Whoa, did I skip something? But the thing that Kanon struck speechless was not how eerie the magic circle was. Only moments ago, this hadn't been here. He had returned to the kitchen for a short while. He had then gone to the storehouse to grab a tool and headed right back. Put together, it couldn't have been more than 5 minutes. How could someone add something this creepy during that period of time? And as though it had just been drawn, almost like the door itself was bleeding, several unsettling vertical red lines slowly dipped down, getting longer and longer. Kumasawa's hands gave away, and she sank down on the spot. If Kumasawa hadn't done this first, then Kanon surely would have wanted to. Beatrice-sama. Kanon gulped and then readied the bolt cutter and approached the door. He didn't want to get close to the disturbing magic circle, and he really didn't want to touch the steadily dripping substance that looked like blood. But if he didn't get close, he couldn't cut the chain. Fighting this cold feeling, he gulped again and again. And after gathering his courage, went even closer, putting the bolt cutter up against the chain. He then pressed with all of his strength and cut through the chain far more easily than he had imagined. cut chain fell into the two separate parts, which continued to clang as they swayed back and forth.
Kanon-san, by your fish, an envelope. And isn't that the master?
It looked like Kumasawa had also noticed the Western-style envelope at the bottom of the door, and that the sealing wax had been sealed with a head's ring. Kanon was lost for just a second over whether he should open the letter first or check inside the room. But he decided to prioritize his original purpose. Kanon pulled a handkerchief out from his pocket. This was so he wouldn't leave fingerprints on the door. His worst fears had been realized. The police would want to investigate this room too. He slowly pushed the door open. He was able to hear the sound of the television that had been seeping out slightly more clearly now. Eva-sama? Eva was face up on the bed. On the bed with her shoes still on. Kumasawa had fearfully entered the after Kanon, who was hiding behind his back, screamed a short heave again when she saw Eva like that. Eva's shoes had been the first part of that Kanon had seen, so the incongruity of wearing shoes in bed was the first thing that entered his mind. But after he shifted his line of sight towards Eva's head, Kanon couldn't help but let out a short scream like Kumasawa. Right in the middle of Eva's forehead, something was set there, growing there. No, right in the center of her forehead, an old-fashioned knife, or some weapon like it, was stuck right in. From the base where it was stuck in, blood dripped down, staining the sheets on the other side of bright red. Kumasawa's knees gave way once more and she sank down on the floor. Her mouth kept flapping open and closed, but she couldn't even scream. Eva, with some kind of weapon sticking out from her forehead, was dead. Both eyes were open wide, and the image of the person who killed her must have been burned into them. But the mouth with which to speak the truth had already been internally sealed. Even though the forehead was the last place they wanted to look, they couldn't tear their eyes from it. Right there, the weapon was stuck into Eva's forehead, standing almost perfectly upright. And on the handle was a design so complicated you could never expect to see it on an ordinary weapon. That thing could be summed up with the word occult. It was a vulgar object with a design that might have been of some demon. What about Hideyoshi-sama? Hideyoshi-sama! Eva was on top of her bed, but the other bed was empty. Where was Hideyoshi? After taking a backward glance at Kumasawa, still on her knees and stupefied, he checked the bathroom just in case. At the moment he opened the door, he was greeted by steam and the sound of the shower. The bathroom was of the same familiar style as most hotel bathrooms, containing both a bath and a toilet. When taking a shower, a waterproof curtain was used to keep the water from flying out. Oh. Holy cow. How do you hide the text box again? Oh, what did I do? That's said. Oh crap! Do you look? Crap! How do you hide them? I should check the option. That's not it. Although I should check that as well later. Crap, I guess I just don't know how to hide the text box anymore. But we can see a knife in his forehead. The waterproof curtain was half open, and lying tumbled down in the bathtub was Hideyoshi, completely naked, both eyes still open, and those eyes were pointing right at Kanon. Phoenix, you are so smart. Breg, it doesn't say which one hides. Grr, curse you. I did it before, like it is a thing. It's over. I tried every letter and I tried every number. So it's GG's. Since his head had been under the wait. I don't think I read. No, I did. No, I didn't. The waterproof curtain was half open, and lying tumbled down in the tub was Hideyoshi, completely naked, both eyes still open, and those eyes were pointed right at Kanon. Just like Eva, a weapon with a demonic design was stuck into his forehead. Since his head had been under the hot water for the shower the whole time, his face was then half covered and filthy with blood like Eva had been, but the sight of him dead while still taking a shower was tragic enough. Just then, Natsui's voice rang through the hall. She was probably coming with Genji. I wanna yap. Let's check the characters first. So, last time I said that Kinso, I'm under the impression that it's Kinso choosing the sacrifices. So, okay, I'm under the impression that the key the riddle talks about is Kinso. He would be egotistical enough to call himself the key. So the first Twilight says the six chosen by the key. So that's why I started rambling about how he chose the six people he looks down upon, the six people that he doesn't respect, and he left alive the people he does respect. But then the second Twilight has nothing to do with the key. It's just to report the two who are close. So it doesn't matter who he respects or not anymore, because the key doesn't matter. It's just what the riddle says. So if it's still Kinso killing these people, then he killed two people he respects, Eva and Hideyoshi, not because he doesn't respect them anymore, but because it just had to be. The riddle said they had to die. They were the ones who were close. And that's just how it is. Interesting. So I did correctly assume that Hideyoshi and Eva were the two who were close, so Yuffie on that front. Got it. Let us read. Ushiromiya Hideyoshi, found in the bathroom of the same guest room that Eva was found in, with a weapon resembling an ice pick having been rammed into his forehead, just the same as Eva. You can't see either of them by looking through the gap of the door what the chain has said. Can't see and can't reach. Go on. How could a human have killed them then? Ushiromiya Eva. Found on the bed of the guest room inside the mansion, with a weapon resembling an ice pick having been rammed into her forehead. The windows and door to the room were locked from the inside, and even the chicken was said. No way could a human have killed her. The third Twilight, those who remain shall praise my noble name. That probably means that Kinso is going to show up again on the third Twilight. So, who's alive right now? Okay, so the head. Yeah, this my original thought process has to be changed completely now. Let's fix it up. So, the six chosen by the key I had said were Maria, Kairi, George, Hideyoshi, Jessica, and Natsuhi. So now, okay, I was right about Kairi. That's it. I was only right about Kairi. The six chosen were Kraus, Rudolph, Kairi, Rosa, Shannon, Goda. Then the two who were close I had assumed were either Shannon and Kanon or Hideyoshi and Eva. So I was right on Hideyoshi and Eva. So the head I had assumed it was Kinso, Jessica, or Genji. It could be any of them still. But now I think it's going to be Natsuhi, who they're talking about. So I'm betting it all that Natsuhi is the head. The chest I had assumed was Kraus, Jessica, or Shannon. Shannon and Kraus are dead. So I guess it could be Jessica. It makes sense, she would be the next in line. She would be the chest. The stomach I had said were Eva, George, or Kanon. Eva's dead. And I think George being the stomach still makes sense to me. So I'm gonna bet it on George. The knee I had said was Rudolph, Agni, or Goda. Goda and Rudolph are dead, so I'm once again betting it all on Agni. And the leg I had said were Rosa, Maria, Kumasawa. Rosa's dead. So Maria Kumasawa, I bet it on Maria. So, who's alive right now? Okay, so the ones that I did are all family members. But what if they're not talking about family members? We would be missing one. Because we only have 4 non-family members. So let's go about it that way. So the head would be Genji. The chest would be Kanon. Nah, I think the chest would be Nanjo. The leg has to be Kumasawa. The knee is Kanon. So who's the stomach? That I could not tell you. I have no idea what the stomach could be. If it's not a family member. But we could just move... We could move people down. Like, move Genji as the chest and everyone else down and have the head still be Natsuhi. We'll see. That's my new prediction. Anyways, let's play. Again with this graffiti! What about this letter? What does it say inside?
I have not yet read it. We should touch it carelessly. We shouldn't touch it carelessly. The culprit's fingerprints might be left on it. We should hand it over to the police.
They went out of the way to leave it here. I'm sure they would have left fingerprints.
Stating this with finality, Natsui picked up the envelope. And before checking its contents, she entered the room herself, where she found Eva dead.
Eva-san!
Madame Hideyoshi-sama is here too.
This is
Oh crap, what?
This is truly atrocious.
Kanon, turn off the shower. Don't let this be any more pitiful than it needs to. Yes. Kanon gripped his handkerchief and twisted the valve, turning off the shower. In the bathtub, a small bottle of body soap had fallen with its cap off. It really looked like he had been attacked right in the middle of taking a shower. A spray of blood still clung slightly to the white tub, and the combination of red and white made a horrible contrast. Dr. Nunjo.
I understand. No signs of post-mortem liability. Rigor mortis hasn't begun either. I'd say barely an hour has passed since they were killed, if that. Even so, how a weapon with such a short handle could do that to the skull, I cannot imagine.
Nunjo checked the pulse and their pupils, making sure of their deaths once more. As Kanon watched this business-like treatment, he thought, couldn't you tell at a glance that they're dead without doing all this? Nunjo thought about removing the weapon, but after deciding that where possible it would be better to hand the scene over to the police without disturbing it, he left it alone. However, a close examination of the base revealed that it had no blade. Or rather, it wasn't shaped like a flat blade, but was conical. He noticed that rather than a knife, it was more like a short-handled spear, something with a shape better suited for thrusting than slicing. Rather than a short spear, some might have called it a thick ice pick. At any rate, the original hideous purpose for which this weapon with its unsettling design was made, and exactly how this purpose was carried out, were both displayed here in such a glaring fashion that there was absolutely no need to use further words to describe it. Natsui hoping to escape the repulsive steam filling the bathroom as soon as she could, covered her mouth with a handkerchief and dashed off from the room. Just viewing their gruesome bodies from an instant had been enough to burn the image into her eyes. If she looked any longer, that image would surely remain in her vision for all eternity. The rising urge to vomit was exactly the same as feeling she had that morning at the grand gardening storehouse. For a while, Natsui couldn't help but stand with her back facing the guest room, fighting that sickness in her stomach. Anyway, we can't let the kids. We can't let George-kun see this room. Quickly, close the room up.
Gracious no. It shouldn't be shown to them. If George-san saw his parents in this bitter state.
But the recklessly approaching footsteps were obviously George's, even before he came flying into the room. George and the other children had been waiting in the parlor. But they had seen Genji call Natsui out and had noticed her turn pale and fly out the room. They had felt that he might have been the bearer of bad news. But when they saw a large group of people gathered around the guest room, they were sure of it. Father, Mother, oh, what is that? Another magic circle? Auntie Eva and Uncle Hideyoshi are safe, right? Hey, Kanon-kun, what's this all about? Butler-sama. Kanon didn't have to say anything. George's scream after he ran into the room told them everything they needed to know. Who did this? I'll kill you. I'll kill you! George, hang in there, dear. Natsui touched George's shoulder with her hand, but he violently shook her off. George collapsed to the floor beside Eva and buried his face in the bed in front of his mother's face, wailing. He pounded on the bed with his fist over and over again. George, son, hang in there. Come on, Butler. Butler-sama. Butler had his back against the wall of the hallway, and was without restraint covering his eyes with his right hand and weeping. Horrible. That's horrible. He proposed to the girl he loved and lost her the next day. And on the same day, he and his mom and dad were killed. Isn't it just way too hard? Of course he felt sorry for everyone who had died. But Butler felt far more sorry for those who had been left alone by the death of others. Everyone here now lost someone close to them. George wasn't the only one he felt sorry for. However, George's pain was far greater than everyone else's. Butler? Sure. Well, people die sooner or later. If you're human, the day's going to eventually come when you've got to fight the sorrow of losing someone close to you. But still, shouldn't that take me far in the future, Anarchy? And shouldn't those deaths visit him one at a time? Horrible. That's too horrible. Bastard. Bastard. Don't you have the slightest bit of human compassion?
Butler, don't cry. Don't cry.
Maria tried to confront Butler in a mechanical sounding voice. Butler violently wiped his tears. Damn it. I won't cry anymore. The tears of regret, tears of sadness. I won't shed them again. And it's no goddamn good at all. The witch is backing us into a corner. You're always on the defensive. And that's no good. It's no goddamn good. I'll flip over the chessboard. That bastard probably thinks of us like sheep just cowering in fear until tomorrow, with no way of running. Guess what? I'll flip it over. That bastard can escape this island until tomorrow either. We won't be the ones hiding away, pissing ourselves. The fucker will. I'll expose you. You'll see. By tomorrow. No. Forget tomorrow. Tonight. Before the night's over, I'll be gripping you by the collar. Boiler room. Oh jeez, I mean I did ask for Emma's death. So I should stop talking. I also asked for Krause's death immediately before he died. And then I asked for Eva. Whoops. My bad. I mean, out of everyone that remains right now, I don't think I want anyone dead. So this means that no one else will die. At any rate, we'll lock this room and leave everything as is until the police come. All agreed. That's what we proclaimed, as though she didn't care whether they agreed or not. If anyone had the right to object, it would have been George, but he looked as though he had shed enough tears. Still facing away from them, George nodded slightly and rose to his feet, and everyone else agreed in response. Natsui still hadn't opened the head's Western-style envelope she had picked up. But since they would all be leaving the room now, she decided that she would unseal it in the parlor, where everyone could watch. As soon as they walked into the hallway to head back into the parlor, some of them immediately felt something out of place, or maybe sensed something strange. Mm, stinky! You noticed it too, Maria. What is that stench? It smells awful. As they all sniffed the air, they did notice a horribly foul, burnt smell, unlike anything any of them had ever smelled before, drifting through the hallway.
I will go quickly to check the kitchen. I'm sure I turned the flame off.
After noticing a burnt smell, it was natural that Kumasawa, who had just been cooking in the kitchen, suspected that her own clumsiness had caused it. Kumasawa hastily dashed away.
Konami, go, Kumasawa. Do not let her be alone.
Yes. After nodding at Genji's order, Kanon went chasing after her. The others, although they did not run, also followed in order to search for the source of the smell.
Stinky.
It truly is a stench that makes the nose wrinkle. However, I'm not sure it would be safe to open a window for ventilation. Natsui was reluctant to open windows in a situation where self-defense was so important.
Let us run the fan. I do not believe there would be any need to open the windows. George Aniki, is it okay if I talk to you? But if it's about finding the killer, then I have no problems. It seemed that George had already climbed out of the abyss of his sorrow. All that filled his chest now was the quiet they might have sneaked the shutter's key out of the servant's room. Or maybe they had a duplicate key. I can imagine many ways they could have done it. But this chain is different. Among generally used locked techniques, chain is the simplest one to create a locked room with. Only a chain will block everyone coming in from the outside as long as it isn't physically broken. So doesn't that mean that the culprit couldn't have gone in or out through the door? That's interesting. Just a few hours ago, I seem to remember everyone making a fuss about how to get out of a room without using the door. Back then, everyone had been making a fuss about how grandfather had disappeared from this room. Because of the receipt that Auntie Eva had stuck in the door on a whim, it was revealed that the door had remained sealed. And since Aunt Anatsu had been the only person to enter the or exit during that time, she had come under suspicion. Auntie Eva had proposed a theory about how Aunt Natsui might have thrown grandfather out the window and left by the door herself. But this door is much simpler. It was sealed from the inside by the door chain. The window had also been closed from the inside, and the bodies had been in the room. This time it really was, without exaggeration, a true locked room. That's right. If you include grandfather's disappearance, 3 incidents have occurred, and all 3 times the door has been the point of interest. The first was the shutter. There was a key in the servant room that, if we assume someone knew about that, this can't really be called a locked room. The next was the door sealed by the receipt. However, since Anatsui had entered the room, she couldn't have let grandfather out through the window or thrown him out, and she would have been able to lock the door without leaving. Lock the window without leaving. Or, like my crazy theory, he could have hidden until the receipt was gone and left the room later. Basically, this door can be defeated with a handful of desperate tricks. In that sense, you really can't call this one a locked room either. And now we have the door sealed with the door chain. Finally, we have to give up. The window, the door, everything had been locked from the inside. It was a perfect locked room. The first hadn't been a locked room because everyone could be suspected. The second hadn't been a locked room because Aunt Natsui could be suspected. But this time, no one can be suspected. This room was a perfect locked room, sealed by a door chain that denied access equally to everyone. In that case, did the culprit carry out the crime without entering the room? Some method from outside the room. Good thought. It is a chain, so even though it can be opened wide enough for a person to fit through, you can open a small crack. The culprit could knock on the door and make them peer out before attacking them, or... Wait, is that naive? Yeah, it is. If Auntie Eva's body had been lying right next to the door, then it might have been possible. But she was on the bed in the center of the room. And Uncle Hideyoshi was even in the bathroom. Looking from the crack in the door, you couldn't even see them, and you couldn't even reach them with your own hands either. Damn it. This is no goddamn good at all. I don't have a clue. Something was tugging softly at my sleeve. It was Maria.
Um, satisfied?
What do you mean, satisfied?
Butler, because you didn't want to doubt any of your relatives, you made a wish, saying that you wanted the culprit to be Beatrice, right? Well, Beatrice granted your wish. Just as you said, she did it in a way that no human could make you believe in the witch. Yet, you're being stubborn.
I tapped Maria, who was laughing unpleasantly, on the head with my fist. Sure, thanks for granting it. That was an expression of my gratitude, and a free lesson in not laughing at times like this. More importantly, tell me. There was more mysterious graffiti on the door to Auntie Eva and Uncle Hideyoshi's room.
Was that another magic circle?
It's an especially memorable and characteristic design, so I hope you at least know that one. Oh,
I don't know. That's why I'm handing the stage over to you. Quit whining and explain.
sure I'm right, and Butler. I won't tell you ever being so mean, get it? Oh, uh, I'll say it, you brutish man. That's the first magic circle of the moon.
What does it mean? What does this magic circle benefit? What does the Hebrew writing mean?
Words are from the Old Testament, Psalm 107 and verse 16.
Wait, isn't that the same one? Let's look it up. Nope, it's new. Let's read from a little on top. From 10. Some sat in darkness and utter darkness, prisoners suffering in iron chains, because they rebelled against God's commands, and despite the plans of the Most High, so he subjected them to bitter labor. They stumbled and there was no one to help. Then they cried to the Lord in their trouble, and he saved them from their distress. He brought them out of darkness, the utter darkness, and broke away their chains. Let them give thanks to the Lord for his unfailing love and his wonderful deeds for mankind. For he breaks down gates of bronze and cuts through the bars of iron. Quite on the nose, isn't it? Nothing about this game is subtle. Very good.
For he has broken the gates of brass and cut through the bars of iron. This magic circle has two effects. First, it can be open any door regardless of the method used to lock it.
That sure is convenient magic. So your wish is proclaiming this to be a door that can be opened without relying on the power of magic. And the other effect.
It takes the unopening door as a representation of an unassailable situation and opens it. By using it in a difficult situation, it gives you a solution you hadn't even thought of until then. To put it simply, it grants the powers of observation and discernment, inspiration, and intuition. Beatrice is trying to provoke you lowly humans since she thinks there's no way you could ever understand how this door was opened. Ow!
Alright, good work. Now shut up. Suits me fine. I accepted the witch's challenge. Maria-chan. Things like witches and demons don't exist in this world. Someone killed mother and father. I don't know whether that was someone I know or not, but either way, it was definitely a human.
Yeah, but how? How did they reach them through the crack in the door that couldn't have been more than 10 centimeters wide? At any rate, I can't stand this stench. What the world could it be?
Kanon and Kumasawa, who had gone ahead, realized before they had even reached the kitchen that the smell wasn't coming from there. That was because on their way to the kitchen, they noticed that an even thicker wave of stench was rising up from the stairs leading up to the basement. The boiler room.
Wonder there's something wrong with the boiler again.
Those stairs led to the underground boiler room. The mansion boiler was old and had been playing up recently. Both of them had witnessed the problems with the boiler on several occasions, but they had never smelled it belching out a stench like this before. Slam.
What was that sound?
The sound that I heard from the basement had definitely been the sound of a door closing. Although she did phrase it as a question, Kumasawa too had already realized that the sound couldn't have been anything else. Kumasawa was so surprised at the sound that her knees gave way yet again, and she cowered. Because at that very moment, no one could have been in the boiler room. Just a few seconds ago, everyone had been crowded together in Eva and Hideyoshi's room. So who caused the sound of a door closing just now?
Kanon-san.
Instantly gathering the situation, Kanon ran down towards the basement. Since they had They heard the sound of a door closing just now, and there was no trace of someone climbing the stairs, and meant that the person who had closed the door was now inside the boiler room. If the boiler room had been a dead end, Kanon wouldn't have rushed in so hastily, but Kanon was a servant, so he knew. There were two entrances, one that opened to the mansion and one that opened to the courtyard. If he didn't chase them right now, they might slip away. Kumasawa reached the same conclusion long after Kanon did, but she couldn't let him go alone. If the thing in the boiler room was the killer, an opponent who had easily killed 6 of those in the first murder, then Kanon would be no match if he simply confronted them alone. Of course, by this argument, Kumasawa joining him alone wouldn't even mean anything, but at any rate, after a delay, Kumasawa decided that she mustn't let Kanon go alone, and she dashed down the stairs. At that time, Kanon was already in the boiler room. The boiler room's characteristic damp heat tormented him. It had always been an unpleasantly smelly and hot place. And on top of that, the room was full of that horrible stench which made Kanon feel like he was going to be sick. There was no doubt that this room was the origin. In that case, Kanon should have been searching for where the smell was coming from. However, Kanon kept gazing straight forward as he grabbed the hatchet from the tool shelf just off to the side of the door. He hadn't stretched out his hand because he wanted a hatchet. He had wanted to grab a weapon. Any weapon. Why? Kanon gazed into the darkness where the naked light bulb couldn't pierce. Then he answered. In roulette, you bet on a number or the colors red or black bind for a payoff. However, low-risk bets like red or black only offer a similarly low payoff. The words coming from Kanon's mouth were swallowed up by the darkness. The darkness suddenly started to swirl, glittering. Uh-oh. It was a very fantastical scene. Golden sparkling butterflies that hid in the shadows all over the boiler room flapped their wings twinkling beautifully, and disappeared into the darkness, gathering together. Kanon continued speaking, directing his words at the darkness as it swallowed the butterflies up. But as the butterflies gathered in the darkness, they, perhaps, probably, no, they must have, laughed. But Kanon continued to speak without faltering in the slightest. On the other hand, if you bet on something of a lower probability, you receive the payoff proportional to the risk. The master called succeeding despite an astronomical risk a miracle, and called the astronomical payoff gain as a result magic. I have no interest what kind of magic you and the master were seeking when you spun that roulette, but you forgot something. You forgot that roulette has a pocket that is neither red nor black. Roulette has a special pocket called zero, which means that the house takes everything in certain variants of the game, meaning that all the coins bet on the table would be swept up just as though everyone has forfeit. I set my heart on one thing, that if Shannon were to be killed and I was left alive, I would bring this roulette of yours to ruin, even at the cost of my life. This isn't one of Master's rules, and it certainly isn't one of yours. I made this rule myself. I'm not furniture anymore. I'm the zero on your roulette. What is he cooking? Kanon's face twisted with humiliation. It was clear that he had dealt ridicule in response to his self-denial. Kanon's brow creased even further, and a furious expression that he had never shown anyone appeared on his face. The hand grasping the hatchet was shaking. His sweat became drops which slid down. It was clear that the emotion causing Kanon's hand to shake was not anger alone. However, Kanon suspected that emotion. I won't let your words lead me astray again. This is where the demon's roulette ends. Wait another 1,000 years in hell for your next summoner! Beatriz! When Kanon swung the hatchet upwards and tried to dive into the darkness definitely sneered. It sneered at the courage as vulgar, lazy, futile, and meaningless. What? What? Kanon held his hatchet still held aloft. Couldn't take another step after that. With a clang, the hatchet that Kanon had been grasping fell and rolled on the floor. And following that, with a pair of thuds, Kanon's knees hit left, then right. That hand, which looked like it was trying to catch the sky now that the hatchet had been dropped, gradually lowered and rested on his chest. Then the other hand did the same. Right there, with a handle with a demon-shaped design engraved upon it. The same type of weapon that had been stabbed into Eva and Hideyoshi's foreheads was in Kanon's chest. Fresh blood dribbled from the corner of Kanon's mouth as it twisted in anguish. It was makeup too powerful for Kanon's white skin. Around the scene, the glittering old gold butterflies danced mesmerously through the darkness. It was a beautiful, beautiful dance. A funeral march of tribute, ridicule, and contempt for a single boy's self-sacrifice. Kanon had already been prepared for his own death. But he attempted one last measure of resistance, to reject death in at least the form it had been delivered to him. With both hands he grasped the handle of the weapon sticking into his chest, and gritting his teeth at the acute, unearthly pain, he pulled it out. For only a moment, bright red spray gushed out. It made an unpleasant blood bloop sound. It probably resembled the sound of Kanon's soul as it sucked into the swamp of the dead.
Kanon-san! Someone! Ah!
Kurosawa screamed at the incomprehensible sight in front of her. Kanon was lying in a pool of blood. Kurosawa's heart was a complete mess. Ah, what a terrible fate. He wouldn't have been killed if I had been with him. Ah, what incredible fortune. If I had been with him, I might have been killed too. As she screamed, her expression was filled with complete confusion, and all of the muscles of her face were pulling up almost as though she was smiling while crying. No one could have made fun of an expression such as this. What is it, Kurosawa? It's me, Kurosawa! The first one to dash in was Natsuki with a rifle at the ready. Butler and Genji dashed in after her. Normally, they probably would have started discussing the origin of that violent stench filling the boiling room. But after they saw Kanon, who was lying on the ground as if he was drowning in the ocean of his own blood, the stench wasn't important anymore. No, answer me! Can't you bring Dr. Nanjo here? Natsui realized that even though Kanon was on the verge of death, he was still conscious, so she sent Genji to get the doctor. Natsui, holding the rifle aloft, faced the darkness in the center of the boiler room and shouted, "Who's hiding over there? Come out quietly! If you don't come out from there, I'll shoot without mercy! A flashlight! Auntie, light him up!" Butler, thinking quickly, took a large flashlight from the tool shelf along the door and used his light to cut through the darkness Natsui was glaring into. But the light only shone on the mechanical-looking piping in a door. The door had been left open, a small creak, and it was obvious that someone had leapt through there in a hurry. Natsuhi, where does the door go? Kenji, where does the door lead to?
The courtyard.
Like hell did you get away, you damn bastard! Butler let out a war cry as he slammed into the door. Cool air from the outside suddenly rushed in. There were some thin, rough stairs leading up. Butler ran up them shouting, "Wait, Butler! It's dangerous to be alone!" Natsui also rushed up the stairs, chasing after Butler. On top was the courtyard. The courtyard of the mansion had been built strictly for lighting purposes, so it wasn't a very elegant place. But it was surrounded on all sides. The air was calm and completely undisturbed, even though they could hear the sounds of strong winds. It was only the gentle, sorrowful rain. Through the cold, scattered raindrops, Butler dashed up the stairs and into the courtyard, where he looked in every direction. Alright, intermission. It wasn't obvious. Kanon is my kind of character, so it didn't take long for me to get attached. So even though I barely knew him, I cried late on this scene. It was a very good scene. That was a sacrifice. I'm just... What does it mean? Because I'm still under the impression that Beatriz is not gonna show herself. Not in this way. Not in the way that she's killing people. Yeah, because on the second Twilight is those who remain shall tear apart the two are closed. Not the witch. It's not until like the ninth Twilight where Beatriz is supposed to show up. So I really don't think... It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to me that Beatriz is right now killing Hideyoshi and Eva, despite the riddle saying that those who remain will kill them, and then killing someone unrelated like Hanan. I don't buy it one bit. To me right now, Beatriz is like Gaster. Just spectating. She wouldn't indirectly interfere. She wants to see them kill each other. She doesn't want to kill people. There's no fun in that. I think Shannon and Kanon's deaths were suicides. They are the only ones who saw the butterfly. I think with Shannon, it's more like Kinso ordered Shannon to kill everyone and then kill herself. And like, that would explain why half her face is carved and not all of it. Because she died in the middle of carving her own face. And then with Hanon, it's more easily explained because he literally... He held the knife while it was in his chest. So you can say, you know, someone stabbed him or he stabbed himself. I don't think Beatriz would kill people. I think Shannon and Kanon's deaths were suicides. Because they are the only ones who have seen the butterflies. And we already know that when you see the butterflies, you are met with a terrible fate. Let me write that down. Top fan. You hear that? I'm your number one fan. It's undeniable now. It's... Oh my gosh. Sems just took it back immediately. I was about to say, like, when you said that is when Sem shows back up. He's gonna fight for it. Like, how does this thing even work? Let's read it. Top fans and XP. What's the leaderboard? A place for fans to stand out in the community. The top 3 get special badges and live chat. It resets every stream so you can always try again. How do you get the leaderboard? You need to collect experience points or XP. Here's how you can get them. Send live chat messages, send super chat, and super stickers. So it's just amount of messages? It has to count like how many words you say in the message as well, I assume. Oh well. Anyways, you heard it here. You gotta pay me money if you wanna be number 1. Of course, the odds of him finding a suspicious silhouette just standing around nonchalantly were pretty much 0. Oh, also back to the butterfly thing. Since I am assuming that Beatriz is not killing people, yes, that means that I think someone else killed Eva and Hideyoshi. Who beats me? How? But it wasn't Beatriz. I don't think so, at least. Butler turned around looking in all directions. He turned again and again. He kept spinning around until he almost lost his sense of direction. He prayed that he would see the culprit somewhere in the scenery, but there was no chance. All he saw as he spun was more and more of the mansion's heartless walls and windows. Furthermore, there were 2 entrances to the mansion from the courtyard, and neither of them were locked. Because the courtyard couldn't be entered from the outside, the mansion doors had been built without locks. He couldn't tell which one they had left through. He had to give up. Butler pounded the wall with his fist, swearing, "Butlerkin, you mustn't run ahead by yourself." Butlerkin? Butler put his head against the wall and scratched at it with his fingernails as he cried. Shit. Tiamat and Hideyoshi, and after Nankun too? You killed 6 whole people, and that wasn't enough. So you killed 3 more? Auntie Ella and Uncle Hideyoshi were always fun and kind to us. I just met Konon-kun yesterday, but I'm sure I've gotten along fine with him. Why did you kill them? Why? Why? When people die, they don't come back to life again, you know? They aren't gonna quickly sprout up again like bamboo shoots. Why would you kill them? Why? Why? Butler was a boy who couldn't understand the feelings of pain and regret in a person's heart. So he cried, with all his strength. Natsui, who had always thought of Butler as a strong person, was a little surprised to find that he had this delicate side. And at the same time understood how easily hurt the heart of a young person could be, so she held him. "It's alright. I'll definitely protect you, George-kun, Maria-chan, and Jessica." Just... Natsui, please, don't die. She's my favorite character with, like, no contest. As a mother, and as a representative of the Ushinomiya family, Butler, after sobbing into Natsui's chest for a while, wiped his tears with a bitter smile and tried to convey that he had cried more than enough already, just as he'd done times before.
Anyway, let's go back for now. Protecting ourselves is a higher priority than finding the culprit. Tomorrow, the boat will arrive. After that happens, the police will come, and everything should be brought to light. There's no way the killer can escape this island, no matter how much they struggle.
Right. When the police come, when the seagulls cry, the crime will be solved. But for some reason, Butler felt a slight sense of uneasiness, as if the seagulls would never cry again. That couldn't be true. When the typhoon passes, the lively seagulls should return to the harbor again. I returned to the boiler room, along with Aunt Natsui, and told the room weekly that we hadn't found anything. They told me that Dr. Nanjo and Georgianeki had carried Kanun-kun to the servant room. The servant room had a first aid kit and a sink and could apparently function as a nurse's office. Kumasawa-san and Jessica had accompanied them. Stains from Kanun-kun's blood remain on the floor. Judging by the large amount of blood lost and the ruthless shape of the weapon that had fallen unceremoniously to the ground, I figured the Dr. Nanjo treatment would probably end in vain. The weapon was doubtlessly the same type that had been stuck in Aunt Eva's and Uncle Hideyoshi's foreheads. But wait, isn't the demonic design of the candle a little different? There seemed to be some small differences in that part. Still, as far as their overall shape was concerned, the weapons were all of the same type. Though it had seemed brutal, we'd left the weapons stuck into Auntie Eva and Uncle Hideyoshi's to preserve the crime scene. So this was the first time I was able to have a perfect view of the entire weapon. Indeed, the weapon was not bladed like a knife, but shaped like an ice pick. Or rather, a thin stake. And also, it had a spiral-shaped design, sort of like a drill. To use a disturbing analogy, it looked like something that might be driven into the hearts of a human sacrifices in some demonic ritual. Including the handle, it was about 25 centimeters long. Half of that was the stake-shaped part, which was stained with deep red blood. The length of the blood-stained part made it clear just how deeply it must have penetrated into Kanunkun's chest. But Aunt Natsuhi and the rest were not even looking at the weapon, instead standing in front of the incinerator where the horrible stench was emanated from. No way! No way they burned the bodies. They had probably pulled that out of the furnace where it must have been burning. It was still smoldering and kept sending out dense waves of that awfully unpleasant smell. Genji-san and Maria were staring down at it. Aunt Natsui probably couldn't stand to look directly at it. She kept shaking her head, her back to it. I thought that after everything that's happened, nothing could surprise me anymore, but this was... I stood there for a while, moaning with a rising urge to vomit. The true nature of that unearthly stench was the charred smell from within the incinerator of a burning corpse. The clothes, the sacrifice of the body, and the hair were all hideously burned. Surface of the body. That grotesque corpse was in the state where not the face, nor the age, nor even the gender could be guessed at. But when I thought about it calmly, I realized that a corpse appearing at this time could only be one person. No way! Grandfather, who had disappeared that morning and whose whereabouts had been unknown. No, no, I'm not falling for it one bit. Literally, why would you have a plot point where it is burned beyond recognition if it's not to hide who it is? Like, come on now, Danganronpa did this already. So no, it's not Kinso. It is. Go back to the storehouse right now. Count the bodies. One of them is missing, just like in Danganronpa. So yeah, no, it's not Kinso. You failed. You failed. Cringe L. I believe it is most likely the master. I agree. That would pass away in such a state. How heartening. But is there any proof that this corpse really is grandfather? It's burned so black you can't even tell what sex it is. But look at the feet. Aunt Natsui, with her handkerchief over her mouth and her eyes averted, pointed and told me to look at the burnt corpse's feet. Huh? The toes.
The toes on both feet. Look closely.
Huh? Ah, you're right. Just as Genji-san had said, there were 6 toes on each foot. Huh? Each of the toes have been arranged so normally I hadn't noticed.
The master had these uniquely characteristic toes in spec. Consequently, the master was entrusted with the survival of the Ushinomiya family.
I have heard that since long ago, cases of polydactyly were common in the Ushinomiya family. It's probably hereditary. Polydactyly literally means many fingers. Because of a little mistake by God, when the person is born, one of their toes or fingers splits into two, and the total number increases. But a big deal isn't usually made of polydactyly in the world at large. That's because it isn't a disease, but something people are born with. So the hospital is already aware of it when they are still babies. And about the time they turn 1 year old, they are given surgery to make them normal. So even if a child has polydactyly is treated before they become self-aware, some they may not even remember it themselves. Incidentally, it seems that it can occur with a probability of about 1 in every 2,000 babies. So even though it's not unusually seen, it isn't rare at all. Speaking of which, I think Uncle Hideyoshi mentioned something to me long ago. Something about how even Toyota Toyotomi Hideyoshi, the man who unified Japan at the end of the Sengoku period, possessed six fingers on one hand. According to Aunt Natsui, among the many Ushinomiya family heads, the ones praised most for their wisdom had all possessed polydactyly. Because of that, when grandfather was born, his relatives were all excited at the thought that he might become another wise leader. And when the leading relatives all died in the Great Kanto earthquake, it was apparently argued that if anyone could restore the family from that, it would be grandfather because of his auspicious sign of his birth. If grandfather thought being the head was not a bad gig, his sixth toe must have been pretty lucky to him. Come to think of it, I think I've heard some country where it's believed that people with polydactyly should be treated as gods and revered. That is beside the point, but it's fairly common in mystery novels for a corpse to be burned to hide whose body it is. But it looks like grandfather's case, just being tossed wasn't enough to hide the proof of his identity. Wrong answer. Fringe. I still don't buy it. You know why? Because again, we know that the killer is purposefully doing things to trick us. They want to steer us in the wrong direction. So they purposefully put him in head first so that we would see the toes but wouldn't be able to recognize anything else. I had already said before that I had believed that Shannon had something to do with Beatriz because of her eye color and the bead on her necktie. So if she is related to Beatriz, who I am assuming because of how Maria and Eva looks like, I am assuming that Kinso and Beatriz had a few children. Who is to say this Shannon isn't an estranged child as well? And who is to say she wasn't born with the six toes as well? Because Natsui literally just said it's hereditary. So they brought up the fact that you cannot tell the gender many times already. So that's the theory right now. It is Shannon's body, not Kinso's. You cannot trick me. You cannot trick me. And grandfather's body was not simply burnt, just like Auntie Eva and Uncle Hideyoshi and Kanon-kun too, who had been stabbed in his chest. He had one of those demon ice picks stuck into his forehead.
The head's ring is not on his finger.
So everything is so everything is as the letter last night said. Father would probably be horribly disappointed. Aunt Natsui let her head droop and closed her eyes tightly. This room had also become a vital crime scene for us to hand over to the police. It was decided that we would leave grandfather's corpse here and lock the room, sealing it. It wasn't clear when grandfather's corpse started burning in the incinerator. Since according to Genji-san, the flames hadn't been that strong, the body must have started burning a long time ago. And the stench must have been slowly crept out the furnace and filled the room bit by bit, eventually pouring out and climbing up the staircase. Putting aside whether he was rare or well done, grandfather had been
brought out, killed, and burned, even though he had started out in the locked room created by his auto lock. There's probably no doubting this. However, according to Genji-san, the boiler room is usually locked. The probability that someone outside our group was lurking around committing the crimes was now overwhelmingly high. And there was also a good chance that this person was walking around with something like a master key. After all, the doors and windows throughout the mansions had been checked. But despite that, the culprit was freely strutting around the mansion. At this latest crime, can we now be sure that a 19th person exists? They haven't shown themselves once, and yet they're trying to tout their existence. Along with Kairi-san's chessboard theory, I've been using this contradiction to deny the existence of a 19th person. By flipping over the chessboard once more, the very fact that this crime makes it perfectly obvious that a 19th person exists means that the existence of the 19th person is even less possible. As long as that 19th person doesn't show themselves in front of us, if the culprit could get grandfather out through the door sealed with a receipt, if they could kill Auntie Eva and Uncle Hideyoshi from the other side of the door sealed by a chain, then it's possible for them to even create a fictional 19th person through strange tricks and devices. If we still want to believe that the culprit is among us, then the list of suspects is very short. The four of us kids, Aunt Natsuhi, Genji-san, Kumosawa-ba-chan, and Dr. Nanja. One of these people has to be the culprit. Wait, we can't be sure of that. Just a second ago, we started doubting whether the body here was actually grandfather's, right? Maybe we should try thinking of the other bodies in the same way. For example, the first 6 all had their faces horribly destroyed. Some of the bodies had kept enough of their faces for us to confirm who they were, but my old bastard, for example, had lost his entire face as though it had been peeled off. We've only figured out which body was which by their clothes and surroundings. Had the culprit prepared a fake corpse beforehand and disguised it to make it look like they died and hid somewhere and continued their killing spree? It sounds ridiculous, but it doesn't seem it's an impossible trick. It's too early to give in to this 19th person. No, this witch. Maria-chan, you mustn't stare so fixedly anymore. Come on, Butler Kunti. I am worried about Kanon's condition, and I don't want to stay in this place like this any longer than I have to. Let's go back. If Kanon does not die, then that just strengthens my theory that this isn't Kinso, because they're not gonna allow anyone to die if it goes against the riddle. Kanon-kun is not supposed to die yet. The riddle only said that on the second Twilight, only 2 people would be separated. So Kanon cannot die. So if he survives, that just explains that Kinso is also alive because he is not meant to die yet. The prophecy hasn't said it yet. Hold on a second. Maria hadn't gone out with everyone else, but had remained in the boiler room. The thing she was staring fixedly at was probably not grandfather's body, but the demon ice pick that was sticking out from his forehead. No doubt an irresistible item for the obsessed. I wrapped her on the head. Hey, Maria. What's Beatrice after? Is it all of our lives?
Beatrice will revive very soon. At that time, none shall be left alive.
How can you laugh at something like that? Do you think you're the only one who's safe? Why don't you feel like you're in danger? Why aren't you scared?
Beatrice promised me. She said that she's going to take me to the Golden Land. It's a wonderful place where you have no obligations. Everyone's always together, and everyone is always nice to everyone else. I'm looking forward to it. The time will come very soon now.
Oh? Just what kind of person is Maria? I only know what Maria was like 6 years ago when she was 3. She had been pure and obedient, a good kid. The new Maria 6 years later and the Maria I knew didn't seem to fit together. Just who is this? Who is she? This witch who calls herself Maria? To her, with her obstinate belief in witches. This series of unsolvable crimes is proof that witches actually exist. Every time something occurs that would be difficult for a human, it becomes a little harder for the rest of us to not believe in that witch called Beatrice. It must be an intense pleasure for Maria to see her relatives, who once finally firmly denied the witch's existence, start acknowledging her existence one by one. Is this why she's in high spirits? Maria, let me ask this one more time. You'll probably answer the same anyway, but I'll ask once more.
Huh?
Maria, you were given a letter in the rose garden. Who gave it to you?
Like I said, Beatrice, you still don't believe?
Maria only repeated what she had already said. Maria had met with the 19th person, the witch. Had that really been a 19th person? Or had that been one of the us 18 who told her to say otherwise? All that's certain is that Maria has been with the rest of us constantly, has always had an alibi, and hasn't done anything that would put her under suspicion. She's simply overjoyed at being made Beatrice's messenger, and certainly is not our 19th person. I think. That's right. I wonder what's written in the letter we picked up in Auntie Eva and Uncle Hideyoshi's room. Aunt Natsuki should still have it with her. And I'm afraid we will not know what the letter says until next month when I do the next stream. Besieged. Holy cow, that was insane. That was good. That was so good. How is there 5 episodes? Everyone's going to die at the end of episode 1. Is there gonna be like a time skip or something? Oh my gosh, you use escape to hide the text box. Great thing to find out right as I end, and I'm gonna forget next stream. Check tips. Oh, Kinso, right, thank you, I'm stupid. Oh, and Kanon. With a weapon resembling an ice pick having been rammed into his chest, he was found in the boiler room. How presumptuous for furniture. Both of these kills are most likely not dead. Ushiromiya Kinso. Burned in the incinerator, with a weapon resembling an ice pick having been rammed into his forehead, the old mage's wish scattered ungranted. This is but one possible result of the gamble he always knew was not in his favor. Very interesting. I don't believe either of these two are dead. So we'll see. 8? There are 8 episodes? Oh, brother. I thought there was 5. What do you mean? Why are 5 through 8? Okay, whatever. That's why I got confused because I only saw the 5. Anyways, yes. There has to be a time skip, right? Like, episode 1 is going to end or maybe up to episode 2, is going to end with the end of the riddle and Butler becoming the new head. And then the episodes after that is going to be Butler rebuilding the Ushinomiya family by himself. Whatever. It's just insane that there's so many. No, I don't play the stupid OP. Okay. 1 through 4 are the question arcs. 5 through 8 are the answer arcs. I don't know what that means, but it makes sense. It does make sense in some way to me. I get it. But very good. Well, that was great. I am flabbergasted. Natsuhi's still alive, so we're good. Very good. Maybe you shouldn't wait until next month to find out. I'm gonna wait until 2 years from now to find out what answer arcs means because that's how long it's gonna take to get there. But yes, that is all. So farewell to all. Have all a good day, good night, good lunch and or dinner. And I shall see you all next time. Thank you for watching. That was great. My voice is dead. Bye bye.